Republican Ohio Senator Rob Portman is also a member of the Senate Finance Committee. He was a yes vote last night. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Dana, good to be with you again.
That's a little bit unusual for Orrin Hatch to get that exercise about something. He's usually a pretty cool customer. But this accusation that the Republican bill is just for the rich, I think is getting under the Republican skin.
Well, I think just the opposite. I think it's getting under the skin of some Democrats because they know that that's not what this bill does. In fact, the wealthiest in this country are going to pay a bigger burden of the taxation. In fact, that's what the Joint Tax Committee, which is a nonpartisan group, has shown. They've also shown that every single income group, every different bracket is going to get tax relief focused primarily on middle-class taxpayers. So in Ohio, for instance, about $2,400 per year for a median family income in Ohio. That's a big deal. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. That's substantial. And in addition to that, of course, it's going to be a tax bill that will encourage more investment in jobs and in wages. And so it'll not just be the tax relief, but actually it'll help create not just more jobs, but better jobs and higher wages. So it's a good bill, and I think that may be chafing some people on the other side of the aisle where they've been talking about middle-class tax relief, and we're now delivering it.
You're right. So the Democrats, they're going to talk about tax cuts for the rich, but they're also upset that the Republicans included in their bill this idea of repealing Obamacare's individual mandate. Let me just explain to people what that does. The senators say that it would reduce deficits by $318 billion over 10 years, 4 million more uninsured in 2019, 13 million more uninsured in 2027, an average annual premium increase of about 10%. So the Democrats are going to drive that home. But I understand why it would make sense to eliminate this tax that a lot of people think is completely unfair, and then it penalizes a lot of people who can't afford it. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think this is a tax issue because, as you recall, the Supreme Court determined it was a tax, not a penalty. That's how it was upheld constitutionally. It also is in the International Revenue Code, so it's a tax issue. About 80% of the people who pay the penalty or the tax in Ohio are living in families with a median income of less than $50,000. So it's not only a tax and a penalty, it tends to hit people at the lower end of the economic scale harder. And therefore, it's not very popular because you're told basically you've got to buy not just a plan, but this plan, the government-approved plan. And some people, frankly, don't want to do that because they can't afford it. They might not be able to afford the copay or the deductible or other things. So people are making a choice. They will still be able to access the Affordable Care Act if they choose to. It's just that they won't have the penalty if they don't. So I don't know. I mean, look, it's something in combination with the legislation that is out there to provide more flexibility to the states and to provide these so-called CSR, the cost-saving reductions. I think actually in combination with those two things, it should get insurance rates down, not up, and that's something Senator Alexander, as you know, has been talking about. So I think this could be helpful for the people I represent to get their rates down.
I was thinking about how conservatives and Republicans were so angry at Chief Justice John Roberts when the ruling came down and that he had said that the Obamacare issue it's a tax and therefore it's constitutional and can go forward. And Republicans were so mad, but now it actually might work in their favor if they want to actually get it done.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. The Democrats were happy to call it a tax back then in order to have it be constitutional. And now that it's in law, some of them think it shouldn't be part of a tax bill. But it is a tax. It is a penalty. And my hope that at the end of the day, again, we can combine this with legislation that actually helps provide lower premiums in the marketplace through more flexibility and for providing some certainty on these cost-saving reductions. And if we do that, we'll do two good things. One, we'll provide middle-class tax relief so people have a little more money in their pocket to be able to pay for health care or retirement or that car payment. And then second, we'll be able to get insurance rates down a little bit.
Well, I still have you. So Obamacare repeal and replace was not a successful legislative effort. And a lot of people thought tax reform would be harder. I'm not an expert, obviously you are, but from my perspective, it looks like actually tax reform has a better chance. But there's 6 Republicans yet to commit on the Senate side. Let me show you their faces here. Ron Johnson, I'm sorry, there's 5. Ron Johnson, Susan Collins of Maine, Jeff Flake, and John McCain of Arizona. There's my 6. Bob Corker of Tennessee and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. What do you think can happen between now and the vote on the Senate floor in order to try to bring them along and get them to yes?
Well, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. I think this tax reform measure is more popular, partly because on substance, I think it's just a very good bill. I mean, it's going to do those two things we talked about, provide middle-class tax relief and help to be able to provide better jobs. And so who could be against that? So I think it's more popular. Second, I think the process has been something that people have been more supportive of because it did go through the committee. We had a long debate in committee, as you saw last night. You saw some of the more spirited parts of that, but we also had a lot of back and forth about the substance of the bill. And on the floor of the Senate and the House, there's also going to be a big debate. There already was in the House, will be in the Senate. So I think for those reasons, I think it's likely those people you mentioned, my colleagues, are likely to support it in the end. You have to talk to them about it, but I've talked to each one of those members that you mentioned, and they all want tax reform. They all believe in middle-class tax cuts. They all believe in strengthening the economy. So I hope in the end we can all come together and get this done with some Democrat votes. You know, there are a number of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who do believe that tax relief is needed right now for middle-class families, who do want to see us be more competitive globally and stop this crazy situation where American workers are having to compete with one hand tied behind their back because of our tax code. They want to bring back the $2.5 to $3 trillion that's locked up overseas that should come back to this country. That's all part of this bill. So I'm hopeful we'll get some Democrats as well.
Well, have a good weekend, and we'll hope to have you back as this process moves forward.
Great to talk to you. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, bye-bye.